We're doing something very different today. But I think you'll find it interesting. Because we're building something exceptional. Before we get there, though, we need to talk about music, which might be one of the most pervasive and important forms of art. It's everywhere, and everyone listens, in their car, through their phones, live, or through their speakers at home. The way you listen, though, has a big impact on the experience. This is why people spend hundreds of thousands on their turntables, cables, amplifiers, DACs, and the all-important speakers, to allow them to transcend into a fully immersive musical experience. But if we want incredible sounding speakers, something to give us that experience, then we have two options. Pony up and buy them, or build them yourself. Most high-end speakers require an incredibly high price to accommodate the expensive cost of manufacturing. There's good quality components, and then there's an incredibly expensive cost of manufacturing, building the actual cabinet, the craftsmanship that goes into that. Now, instead of doing that, what I want to do is I want to spend all my money on high quality components, and we'll just supplement that manufacturing with a little bit of our own elbow grease. And this is where companies like Creative Sound Solutions, CSS Audio, are here to help us, because they can give us the tools and the framework to build this successfully. Let's start with the drivers, arguably the most important part of the speaker, as it's what causes the electrical audio signal to transform into a physical sound wave that we feel and hear. For the tweeter, we're working with CSS's own LD25X, a 25mm silk dome tweeter that's sparkling, neutral, and excellent at reproducing the high frequency sound waves. Then comes this wide dispersion, what they call the LDW6 mid-range driver. And we're also going to use a pair of the LDW7 woofers to cover both the mid-range and the low-end frequencies. But before this electrical signal can even arrive at the drivers, we need a crossover, a circuitry of capacitors, inductors, resistors, and cabling that carefully filters the electrical signal fed to each speaker. It sorts out the electrical signal, sending each driver the range that it needs to work with. For the speaker we're building, which by the way, is CSS's new 3TD-X, they've got options, as the composition of the tweeter capacitor can have a big impact on the sound. But with something like a kit from CSS Audio, we actually have all the tools we need to build our own custom speakers, to create our own path into this incredible musical experience. This is where I have to say a big thank you to my brother, who happens to own a CNC machine, be very skilled with Fusion, a CAD software, and decided to help me build these cabinets. Here's what makes this process special. Unlike an impersonal speaker you buy off the shelf, you get to design the way the speaker will look. It only comes in one-of-a-kind, bespoke custom finishes. But the hard work of designing an incredible sound has been done for you. There's something special about building something yourself. Or in my case, with my brother. I don't have the skill sets to make this a piece of art like he does, but this gave me an opportunity to work with him on a skill he's mastered. So what does the process look like in detail? Well, first, we have to decide how involved we want to be. CSS gives 3 different options with their kits. 1, pre-built speakers. Pick out a design you like, buy it off the shelf. Easy, conventional. 2. Order a kit including an MDF flat pack. Basically, all the framed wood pieces you need to be able to build your cabinet. 3. Build your own cabinets from scratch. I happen to have access to a CNC machine and a brother with a skill set in Fusion. I also wanted to make a few custom designs on CSS's new 3TD-X towers, so I opted for the last option. So the kit comes with all the speaker components you need and a set of instructions detailing the cabinet design. We took this design into Fusion and made 2 key changes. 1, we moved the port from the front to the back, purely for aesthetics. 2, we framed out the driver's edge to create the perception of an inset. Let's call it architectural intrigue. I should note, moving the port from the front to the back won't have any impact on the sound, because these speakers won't be sitting up against the wall. But messing with the front baffle edge might, because it affects how the diffusion of sound comes off of these speakers. So what I'm doing here is probably not best practice. Oh, I also spent, 20, 40 hours mocking up designs, trying to figure out what I wanted the end product to be well before I started. I think my top choice was flying in some designer laminate from Italy, but that was a little bit absurd for the budget. What I landed on was a black Rubio monocoat type finished cabinet with a matte, teddy bear brown laminate from Phoenix for the front baffle. 3D plans in hand, I applied the laminate to the inset baffle. And we cut the cabinets on the CNC. With a bit of cleanup, this gave us everything we needed to test the dry fit of the cabinets and glue them up. By the way, if you go the flat pack route, this is where you'll start. The glue up is always nerve-wracking because it's a lot of pieces, we need to move fast, and we want everything to fit dead square. We gave ourselves almost no tolerance on our CNC cuts, so the fit was tight and required a bit of finessing for us to lock in all the edges, but the glue up ended up going quite well. The fit was perfect. We did land with something that was dead square. While the glue sets, we can also start working on the crossovers. So these will go inside the cabinets and be wired up to the sets of drivers. Which, if you've never done electrical work, if you look at the instructions from CSS Audio, things look terrifying. But honestly, it's like painting by numbers with a soldering iron. The kit comes with this crossover template that tells you where to put everything. You are quite literally matching A to A, B to B, C to C, wiring things up, connecting the leads, soldering them, you're good to go. I'd also recommend covering your leads with shrink tube just to protect the soldered joint after you're done. Another pro tip, if you're building this with someone, this is actually a really great point in the project to leave town, providing clear instructions on exactly how you want these finished without compromise. At least that's what I did. So my brother cut, glued, routed, and sanded the veneers to our cabinets. And stained everything using a black pre-stain and a charcoal finish from Rubio monocoat. This actually finished up the cabinets, and so then it was just time to install the crossovers. Sound dampening material, which CSS provides as part of the kit. And then gluing up and installing the front baffle. And installing the drivers. Another note, which we'll get to in the grill section, but we also glued in some magnets on the back side of the baffles. At this point, we decided to take another bespoke turn from the CSS kit to design some custom legs and feet for the speakers. This was another area where we spent a fair amount of time at the design table coming up with what we wanted to do, how we would manufacture it. But what we landed on was a set of ground steel feet that were already produced, excellent build, very reasonable price, and then had some laser cut aluminum custom cut for the legs. We used a company called Send Cut Send, super reasonable pricing, very fast. I should also note by this point my brother was building and filming everything himself, so we don't have a lot of coverage of this, but ultimately we had the aluminum cut, he sanded a chamfer onto him, and we had them anodized, then installed into the base of the cabinets. So with the legs and feet, everything installed, we basically had finished speakers. But I also wanted to make some custom grills. I ordered a bunch of samples from textiles, from companies ranging all the way up to Kudrat, who's a Danish high-end textile company, but landed on some acoustically transparent grill cloth from Acoustone. I had my brother cut a frame for the grill cloth with an 1/8" channel in it out of acrylic. I glued in several magnets to correspond with where we inset some magnets into the baffles, and then upholstered the grill cloth to the frame using a method like you would for a screen door with spline. You can buy the spline anywhere, Home Depot, Lowe's, Amazon, and it's a fairly easy process to attach this to the frame. Grill cloth's complete. We do have finished speakers. And now it's time to test how they sound. Yes, I'm being a bit dramatic, but these things can slam. They have a warm, detailed, and incredibly spacious sound, and they disappear from the room, giving you an immersive, holographic-like presentation of the music. I decided to build these after listening to my brother's pair. He built a pair of the Criton 3TD-X towers, and I first heard those and immediately know this is the type of house sound that I want. I'm still blown away with the sound that his speakers can create at their price point. I mean, unbelievable. Fortunately, when it was time for me to build, they released this new guy. And I can say it still completely has the CSS house sound, a little bit of a V shape, big, dynamic sound, but something that's not fatiguing. Sparkly highs, massive soundstage, and again, makes most music shine. Compared to my brother's, I think these are a bit punchier, a little bit more dynamic, and have more detail in the mid-range. Compared to everything else I've heard in this type of price point, it just completely blows it out of the water. I really think the DIY option here brings a ton of value. Seriously, if you wanted to buy a sound like this off the shelf, I think you'd easily be spending 5 figures. And even there, I think this can compete with a lot of incredible high-end speakers. But let's be honest, I'm biased. My brother and I built these. And maybe that's the best part. This was honestly a really good experience, and maybe a quick thank you to CSS Audio, who worked with me to actually get these early. I told him I wanted to put together this video and had some working time with my brother, who's in a different city, that I needed to be able to hit that window to be able to build. So a big thank you to them for working with me and for all the detailed instructions along the way. It made the process a breeze. And of course, a huge thank you to my brother, who quite frankly did all the labor-intensive, hardest bits of this. And these things look incredible, all because of him.